this time. Okay, shalom everyone. I suppose we can just dive into the swimming pool and get started here. The latest news that I just got from my wife.
How about can you take the camera a bit down so your figure is in the middle of the screen?
אני לא שומע אותך, מה אתה אומר?
Can you take the camera down a bit? We don't see your whole face.
1 second, and I'll just sit up higher. Better?
Better.
Yeah.
Okay. Rachel, my beautiful darling wife, said to me just now that she saw on TV, on Israeli TV, that President Biden is in the hospital. And one of the Israeli commentators, I don't know which one it was, but Rachel said to me, one of the Israeli commentators said that Obama is making sure to it that Biden will not meet with Netanyahu, and that the vice president also will not meet with Netanyahu. So Obama is pulling the strings, everyone's strings. That's interesting.
Harris said she was going to. Mom,
I don't know. We'll see what happens. Sometimes the people making the assessments could be wrong. But we have known all along that all these people are puppets and marionettes, and that Obama's running the show. Anyway, praise God, Netanyahu is in Washington with his wife and many of the hostages and some of the reporters. I think I mentioned last week that one of the internet reports from the ultra-left protesters was that they were going to take down Netanyahu's plane, assassinate Netanyahu, and that probably there's a connection between the attempted assassination of former President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. So we are all very, very concerned at possible coup d'etat in Israel, as well as things happening in the United States. So we're watching everything very carefully. It's a very sensitive time. Meanwhile, on the Lebanese border, there's very, very heavy rocket attacks at Israel. And I have a feeling, that the Hezbollah in Lebanon are taking advantage of the absence of the Prime Minister Netanyahu here in Israel to send rockets over the border into the north of Israel. Hezbollah has said, however, that they are not going at this stage. At this stage, they are. Excuse me. That at this stage, they are not going to bring their rockets more to the south. Okay. We are also hearing from the Houthis in Yemen that they are preparing some kind of a massive retribution for the attack on Shabbat of the Israeli Air Force into Yemen. Maybe it's involving Iran also. Again, I'm saying we have to watch very carefully what's happening with Iran and its proxies. In other words, Iran, Lebanon, and Yemen, and of course, Syria and Iraq. Meanwhile, the Israeli army is continuing with its work in Gaza and also in the West Bank in Tel Karem. We've had some pretty nice successes there. There were also reports coming out of Qatar that Hamas and the Palestine Authority are merging. I don't believe that for a moment. The hatred between PLO and the Palestinian Authority and the Hamas is abysmal, and so we're watching. We always hear these talks of sulha, or peacemaking between the Palestinian factions. The Israeli response doesn't interest us because there's not going to be any presence in Gaza of the PLO or Hamas. And Israel is moving along, clearing. I don't know, somebody all of a sudden made me cough. That Israel is very careful with what's going on now to clear out more tunnels, eliminate more Hamas terrorists. Because every time Israel moves out of an area we conquered, the Hamas comes back in. I will say one thing, though, in general, and that is that President Biden and his henchmen.
They said on Newsmax that Trump is meeting with Netanyahu today.
Excuse me? That the Hamas immediately pulls into areas where the Israeli army withdraws. There have been hints today that the Israeli army is getting closer to the hostages and getting closer to Sinwar. So maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part, but my hope is that while Netanyahu is in Washington, D.C., we're hoping to get the golden good news that we have terminated Sinwar and we've gotten the hostages out. So we're waiting to see what happens. The next few days are going to be extremely interesting for everyone involved. And of course, Netanyahu has to be very delicate in what he says regarding Republicans and Democrats, considering whoever might win the November elections. And, you know, we're all here in Israel just holding down the fort. I think my son got online here, so I started coughing also. Other than that, I think have you all heard about the Israeli Air Force attack in Yemen on Saturday, right? I see everybody's muted, so no one's answering. But
yes.
Okay, so you all know about that. It's very, very important to stress that we're hoping not to have to attack Yemen, but in the end we had to, and we did so. You can scratch up another notch between Hamas, which has been neutralized, and Yemen, which has pretty much been neutralized. And like I said before, that's 2 fronts out of 7. And so we're still facing Lebanon, which is Hezbollah, Syria, Iraq, Iran. That's 4 more in addition to Yemen also. So we're watching all the different fronts. We seem to be doing okay. On another front, which I really don't want to talk about, but I'll just say a few words. We have a problem in Israel with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is a form of mafia, which is not elected by the people. This is a traditional powerhouse of the left, of the socialists. There is no toleration for right-wing judges. And the Israeli government is really not ruling the country anymore. The Israeli government, any decision they try to make gets canceled by the Supreme Court. I see here Patrick Lenin, how can Israel afford to leave Gaza? If they move out, this will leave a void. Correct. So the overall viewpoint of the Israeli military, of all involved, is that Israel cannot leave Gaza. And so now the Israeli military is talking more and more about the military government that has to provide for the needs of the people of Gaza. Otherwise, Hamas is still in power. If we don't do so, then Hamas will continue to terrorize the people and deliver food, meaning people have to stay with the Hamas. So we're watching this very closely. I also think that as many of the people on the Israeli, of Channel 14, this is the channel we watch, are saying that Israel cannot withdraw from Gaza because within a very short time there will be missiles falling on our towns again, and their terrorists are going to be infiltrating and killing and raping and burning and destroying. So Israel cannot withdraw from Gaza. I think today also it was reported that there were 3 missiles fired from Gaza towards our settlements in the Gaza envelope surrounding Gaza. So we're watching. The Israeli army is just doing a very thorough job, little by little, and eliminating terrorist nests. This is now a guerrilla war that we're facing. I'm hoping we can deal with it properly. So we're to answer you, Patrick, we're going to be in Gaza for quite a while. I don't think it'll ever be possible for us to leave. Oh, also another interesting point that I saw on one of the intelligence sites that I have is that the Egyptians are very actively building missile launchers in Sinai in order to shoot rockets from the Egyptian military into Israel. So we are watching very carefully the possibility of a war with Egypt also after Israel, or maybe during the time that Israel is neutralizing the Iranian proxies in Iran. Egypt may come in also. Any other questions?
Can I add
Lori?
something? Can I add,
Yes, Abba.
something?
What are you asking?
I want to add something.
Yes.
I don't know if it's something that
Can you hear me? Can you hear me better now?
It's try to improve.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you, yes.
Okay. Another thing that I want to point out, you talked about Obama and the US administration. I don't think that many of the people that are attending this session know about this, but in the past 2 months, the US administration has sanctioned several Israeli citizens, including also civilian organizations that have been trying to protest against the humanitarian aid that is brought into the Gaza Strip and is being kidnapped by Hamas. And these sanctions are really problematic, because when the U.S. sanctions a person in Israel, his bank accounts and all of his financial world is suddenly frozen, and you can't do anything. And so that's one problem. The second problem is that the U.S. administration is boycotting or sanctioning Israeli democracy, essentially, because these people that are protesting against the humanitarian aid to Gaza, people that are living in Judea and Samaria and are involved in protecting the communities, the U.S. administration is intervening in the Israeli democracy and Israeli internal affairs, and this is something that is very, very troubling, and it's actually growing. I mean, Japan just today announced that it's going to sanction 4 people from Judea and Samaria, and prior to that, Canada and I believe also France also sanctioned Israeli citizens. So this is something that's terrible. And another thing that happened was they sanctioned a former soldier by the name of Elor Azaria, who served in Hebron. And while serving in Hebron a couple of years ago, he and his friend were attacked by a Palestinian who came to stab them, and they shot him, and then he shot him on the floor to death. So the Israeli army decided to judge him for killing the terrorist, and he actually served time in the Israeli prison, believe it or not. And now, after he served his time, he's being sanctioned by the U.S. So the U.S. administration is actually also sanctioning the Israeli legal system because a person that was punished is not going to be punished again. I mean, he got his punishment, even though he shouldn't have gotten any punishment. So what we're seeing is a steady rise in attempts by what I believe is the Obama administration to eventually target not just individuals or organizations, but possibly even to target the entire population of Judea and Samaria that is Jewish. And this is what they're trying to do eventually is to establish, delegitimize Jewish presence in the biblical heartland and establish a Palestinian state. So this is something that I also wanted to bring up so people understand that that's another thing that's going on here.
Thank you, Aaron. And indeed, as I was beginning to speak before about the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court and the state prosecution in Israel are the ones who are providing the American government with the information of the Jewish settlers in Judea and Samaria so that they may come under persecution from the U.S. government as well. So we have a problem here in Israel where certain aspects of Israeli government and the judicial system actually coordinate with Obama, with the American system, to persecute Israelis who are seen as enemies of the agenda that the U.S. government is trying to promote, the globalist agenda. And it is a problem. And, sometimes even, there's no reason for them to sanction me, but I think to myself sometimes that if anyone is watching these Zoom programs, they may sanction me as well. Anyone who's in the territories, and I'm in the territories, and my sons are in the territories, eventually we could theoretically all be sanctioned by the U.S. government. Don't forget also that 100,000 ballots were cast in the elections here in Israel for Trump. So the Israelis who vote in the American elections are very much pro-Trump, and so they may be seen as enemies of the Democrats and the former President Obama, who maybe still is secretly the president. We heard today on the Israeli news that attempts probably would be made behind the closed doors by Prime Minister Netanyahu to get all these sanctions removed. I don't know what's happening. Again, all of us on this Zoom are outsiders. None of us know really what's going on behind closed doors. But we are all very concerned by an administration, and it has to be said, an administration led by the Democrat Party. And so we shall see what happens after the November elections in the U.S. And then hopefully, God willing, if Trump wins. See, I'm not a member of the Israeli government, so I can say God willing when Trump wins. And I and my sons vote for Trump a third time. This will be our third time voting for him. We need President Trump in the White House, and President Trump will straighten all this nonsense out. I think, Patrick, you had another question. I read it, but I was answering, so I didn't pay attention.
It's just Avi, we hear a lot on the news about Hezbollah firing rockets into northern Israel, and Israel, of course, retaliates. But how much longer can Israel afford just to retaliate and not instead actually invade Lebanon to actually deal with these Hezbollah terrorists?
That is an excellent question. You see, we attacked Yemen on the Sabbath a week ago, or less than a week ago, and the Yemenites basically have not really done anything. They sent one rocket at Eilat, and the rocket was intercepted and destroyed. Israel is not very much concerned about whatever Yemen wants to throw at Israel. But Lebanon is a completely different story. And Lebanon, Hezbollah has 150,000 rockets. I don't know how many, maybe Aaron can correct me. I think it's about 30 or 40,000 rockets with absolute precision to hit any spot in Israel. And you have to remember, let's say 30,000 rockets, and let's say they launch 1,000 rockets at any specific target in Tel Aviv. We can take out a few hundred, but some of those rockets will get through. And wars very often are fought on the economic sphere. In other words, the Israeli economy is in Tel Aviv. The attacks by Hezbollah on the northern settlements, they affect human beings and they affect farmers. They affect people's homes. They affect kids going to school. But rocket attacks on Tel Aviv would cause tremendous disruption to the Israeli economy. And the war is paid for by the Israeli economy. So it's very important not to have a full-fledged war with Lebanon with these missiles coming in from all directions, including from Iran, until we have the laser system set up to take out the incoming rockets, together with the Iron Dome and David's sling. These things have to be all in place exactly at the right time and in every place conceivable to make sure that virtually no missiles get through. Some missiles will always get through. But the laser system, some people know it by the name of Nautilus, that's the old name. These systems can destroy a missile very accurately and very quickly for $40,000 per shot. When Israel launches anti-rocket rockets, that's $1 million a rocket that we send up. This could, bankrupt Israel. So Netanyahu and the military are very careful not to go into a full-fledged war with Hezbollah and Lebanon, and therefore with Iran and other proxies. So what we're taking now in the form of rockets, they're a nuisance. The Israeli government wisely, or maybe not wisely, I say wisely, removed the Israeli population, 60, 70,000 people from the Lebanese border. No matter what they send at us, very few of our people get killed in these rocket attacks. So the question is, how long more will it take before these rockets can be intercepted by laser? They were talking about 1.5 years, and that was 1.5 years ago. So I think that at any given time, any given moment, we will have our laser systems up and ready together with the other systems. We will not go to war with Lebanon until we are ready to go to war. And when we are sure we can prevent Tel Aviv from being hit so hard that it will affect the economy.
Thank you.
Avi, it's Angela.
Yes, dear.
Hello.
From New Jersey.
From New Jersey. Avi, obviously there's, Netanyahu said there's a threat on 7 fronts to Israel. But how concerned is Israel about Syria and all these fighters being poured in there from Afghanistan, has been mentioned before, and Pakistan and Iraq? But what about Turkey's hand in this? I'm interested to hear your take on what Turkey's up to in Syria.
Very good questions. Very good questions. I hope I have good answers for you. Firstly, regarding Syria, we've been at war many times with Syria.
Yeah.
Syria is well aware of what will happen to them if they want to go to war with us. It is true that Iranian proxies are coming into Syria from Iraq, from Taliban in Afghanistan, from Pakistan. You know what? The Houthis from Yemen, they are coming into Syria also, and from there they go to Lebanon. So we are expecting probably a human wave attack
Yeah.
coming across the border from Lebanon and Syria. One of my fears also is that Jordan is like a reed.
Mm.
Jordan can be overthrown very quickly if
Yeah.
attacked by human wave attack. 70% of the population is Palestinian. They hate Israel. They probably join the war. 30% of Jordan is Bedouin with background from Saudi. So they might not want to go to war with Israel. So we're watching that. Now, regarding Turkey, I have mentioned in the past on the Zoom, I've been doing Zooms with Laurie's group for over a year now. I am, I keep saying I'm in the process of writing my 8th book about Turkey and the Armageddon. But the problem is I'm so wrapped up in watching the news that my brains are frazzled, and I'm not really having time to write my 8th book. But my 8th book is called Lepanto and the Battle of Armageddon. And, you know, Lepanto was a major sea battle in 1571. And I imagine that you living in Jersey have learned about the Battle of the Spanish Armada,
Yeah.
in which the British and the Dutch Protestants sank the Catholic Spanish fleet.
Yeah.
And we learned about this in American schools also because it was a victory of the Protestants over the Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a battle, a sea battle, 17 years before, in 1571, called the Battle of Lepanto. Have you heard of that? Most people haven't.
I have not heard of that. No.
Battle of Lepanto took place in 1571, and a combined Catholic navy of Spain and Venice
Right.
sank the entire Turkish fleet. 1571. This is never talked about in Protestant countries because it gives the glory to the Catholics, obviously. But you know, I'm a Jew, so I look at the battles between the Protestants and the Catholics as not important. Which for me, the battles are between Judeo-Christian Western civilization and Islam. And one of the outcomes of the Battle of Lepanto was that in 1571, the Turks were still the most important power in the Mediterranean. The Spanish Catholic and the Venetian Catholic navies did a job on the Turks, but the Turks made two strict demands. One was that the Catholics had to completely reimburse the Turks and build a new fleet for them, which the Catholics did. And the second condition was that Cyprus would go over to being Turkish land. It wasn't Turkish land, it was Venetian.
Yeah.
The Venetians, the Italians ruled Cyprus, and in 1571 it was handed over to the Turks, much to the chagrin of the Greeks. But again, you have to remember, go back to the Catholic Crusaders. It wasn't the first time that the Greeks were sacrificed to the Muslims. 1453 was the fall of Constantinople, and the Catholics did not come to save the Greek Orthodox in the Battle of Constantinople. So 1571, it was easy to sacrifice I don't know how easy it was, but let me just say the Spanish and the Venetian, huh? I thought I heard someone. The Spanish and the Venetians sacrificed Cyprus to the Turks. So all of that came because of the Battle of Lepanto. And if somebody talks, I stop to answer. So make sure you're muted. So one of the things I wanted to tell you, and this is very personal, Rachel and I have a very dear friend, actually my son's also, a Greek Cypriot from Nicosia. And long story short, he was in his summer vacation home in Kyrenia or Kyrenia, depending how you pronounce it. And one morning, it was July 14th, 1974. I had been mobilized by the army, and we were told the Turks were going to invade Cyprus. And that morning, George Kazinos, our friend, went to go get a glass of water at 5 in the morning. And, you know, 5 in the morning, it's light out in July 14th. And he saw the whole Turkish fleet off the coast of the northern coast of Cyprus. And immediately he woke up his wife and his children in pajamas, got them all into the car, and they started driving down to Nicosia, which is the capital of Cyprus. And as they were driving down the mountain, they could see in their rearview mirror the Turkish paratroopers were jumping out of aircraft and landing in the northern part of Cyprus, which they conquered very rapidly. And 160,000 Greeks were either killed or kicked out of their homes in their homes in the north of Cyprus. And I got some insights from George Kazinos. He said to me, we all know that the Turks are never going to be satisfied with 40% of the island. They're going to come for the rest of the island.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting point. Again, this is what I'm sharing is not military secrets. What I'm sharing is information that I saw in the newspapers, that the Israeli commando forces have been training in Greek Cyprus together with the Greek army, Greek forces, exactly for this possibility or probability that the Turks would try to conquer the rest of the island. Hezbollah, whom we're fighting now, they said that they're going to they're going to launch missiles at the different airports in Cyprus.
Yeah.
Israel's airport, Israel Air Force uses the airports.
Yeah.
So this is indeed a regional war. And you have to remember that Greece and Cyprus, I don't know about Cyprus, but Greece is a member of NATO, and so is Turkey.
Yeah.
So this is a very, very explosive situation we're facing with the Turks. And, you know, I will say one thing. Anyone who's flown from Israel out to Europe or from Europe to Israel, you have to fly either over Cyprus or over Turkey. And if you fly over Cyprus, and then the Turks say, guess what? Cyprus belongs to us, because in 1571, the Europeans gave us Cyprus, and there was an agreement like Hong Kong, 99-year agreement. And after 99 years, 1977, we were supposed to get all of Cyprus back, and we didn't. The Europeans lied to us. So the Turks have a long memory of their history. And the Turks inevitably are going to want to reconquer all of Cyprus. And then no Israeli aircraft will be able to take off from Ben Gurion Airport, because we have Egypt to the south and Turkish Cyprus to the north. There will be really no area that Israeli aircraft can fly freely to Europe or to the US.
Yeah.
Israel
and
is
I
going
saw, you know, Turkey refused that Israeli allowed to refuel.
Correct.
Was it last week? You know, you can see that there's just the hostilities burning in them right now.
This is a trend. This is a trend. No Islamic country can tolerate relations with Israel. They could make relations with Israel temporarily, as long as it fits their agenda. But when the day will come, Allah has told us that we have to wage war against Israel. So it's one of the reasons why the alliance with the Greeks and the Greek Cypriots is now very strong. Also, the development of the gas in the Mediterranean, East Mediterranean basin.
Yeah.
The Turks are saying, no, you got to negotiate with us because that gas belongs to us. Well, if Turkey was owning Cyprus, then the gas belongs to Turkey.
I saw Yemen had threatened the gas in the Mediterranean.
Oh, the threats are not like There are plenty of threats coming from Lebanon and from
Yes.
Yemen, and of course the Turks want to confiscate it.
Yeah. It was very interesting what you were saying about Judea and Samaria, because is it right that there's full of fires right now? There's been like 600 fires in the last month
Yes,
from
because
the extremists.
we are
just
we are in a season of parched fields. You know, our summers have
yeah,
no rain. If you know your Bible, we have the former rain and the latter rain. The former rain is in October, and the latter rain is in April. You know, it ends with Tabernacles, and it begins with Tabernacles, and it ends with the Passover.
yeah,
So we are now in the middle of the summer, and so everything is very dry. It's, you know, tinder for fires,
yeah.
and so we're
But
doing
that's
what we can.
more concerning if it's got being influenced by the Democrat Party, shall we say, egging them on, or elements of, to take that territory, or to make it difficult for the communities to remain there.
Well, you know, we have developed a system for sweetening the seawater, and we are now moving ahead very quickly with solar energy, which will provide the energy for desalination. And so literally we are able to, and we must turn the desert green. We must have new trees and new gardens. And, you know, one of my crazy messianic dreams is that the Jews and the Christians together will eventually resettle the entire Middle East. And we will turn the entire Middle East green in preparation for the coming of the return of the Messiah. The Jews and the Christians, wherever you have Jews and Christians, it's green. Whenever the Jews and Christians leave, God forbid, taken over by Islam, it's yellow, parched.
Interesting. Well, we're praying for you, for Netanyahu in America. You know, hopefully he's going to get what he needs. But it was really disappointing, disgusting to note that no one met him on his arrival, other than diplomats. It's very poor, and it just shows the character of these people. Really, it's such bad manners.
Well, you know, I have to tell you something. There are people, not only in America, but in other countries as well, where a Christian, a true Christian, would have come to have met Netanyahu. The Democrat Party is anti-Christian. It is anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, anti-Christian. And the Jews who support the Democrat Party are anti-Jewish themselves. They are socialists. They are universalists. And I'm going to give a very, very broad generalization now, and that is that Judaism is universalist. Judaism has never been able to fit in with Christian nationalist parties, especially in Europe. And we had a Holocaust in Europe. So those Jews who escaped from Europe to America, they blame God, and they are universalist, and they don't believe in religion, they don't believe in God, and they don't like American nationalists. They don't, you know, like I'm kind of crazy. I'm a nationalist Jew in America, and I'm a nationalist Jew in Israel. And actually, I met with I think I mentioned this in past broadcasts. I was asked to meet a militia leader in Florida, and a very nice guy, very intelligent. We had a very good table talk, nice lunch. And at the end, he said to me, "What do you think about the killing of George Floyd? You know, the black guy who was arrested, and he had the knee of the policeman on his neck, and he died. And now they say, you know, or then they said he died because he had all these drugs in his blood. So he should have been in jail. He should have been in a hospital." So I said, they killed him. They should have avoided killing him. Then this neo-Nazi, I didn't know he was a neo-Nazi. He said to me, "What do you think about defund the police? You know, not to give the police a budget." And I said, it's horrible, because if you defund the police, you're going to have killing and crime and chaos. And he nodded his head no. And he said, "You don't understand," he said to me. "We had 3 million militia members before the killing of George Floyd. And today we are not 3 million, we're 30 million. 30 million militia in America." And he said, "The first thing we're going to do is kill the Jews." Because the Jews vote Bolshevik, they vote Democrat. And so Bolshevik, Democrat, Communist, Socialist are anti-God. If you want to be an American nationalist, you can be a Jewish nationalist as an American, but the basis of the nationalism is the founding fathers who were Christian.
Yeah. What a mess.
So it's one of the reasons why I predict a massive immigration to Israel of Jews who will either pick up and leave with their Christian spouses, move to Israel, or be killed.
Yeah.
So we're facing a Holocaust in the U.S. and same with Canada and same with parts of Europe.
Yeah.
So I personally predict a brilliant future for Israel. I believe our borders will expand to receive this population. And I believe we're going to turn the entire Middle East green, like I said, with our solar energy and our desalination capabilities. You know, in the book of Genesis, the very beginning, God says to I think, is it to Abraham? No, to Adam. God says to Adam and Eve, "You will tend my garden." In other words, the Middle East was the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
And it became a desert because of the evil inclination which exists in human people. And now it'll be time for the Jews and the Christians to resettle the Middle East. And Muslims are welcome to stay if they want, but they're gonna have to behave like us, not like terrorists.
Amen to that. Oh. Well, thank you, Avi. Thank you for answering so in depth.
I just wanted to remind everyone that you were my hostess in the island of Jersey, not New Jersey, but the island of Jersey in the British French Channel there.
British,
and,
no French allowed.
I enjoyed being with you very much. Maybe one day, if and when I travel again, I'll come out to see y'all. And
Yeah.
I don't know if Patrick and Helen are still there, but there are tentative invitations to the UK, maybe Ireland. So
Yeah.
you will see. We'll see.
We will see. We'll see. That would be lovely.
I
I look forward to it.
I wanted to make 2 weird statements. Can I talk now?
You are in the right place, my dear.
2 things. There's
Yeah.
a small amount of Black people that believe that those policemen did not kill him and that they were unfairly put in sentence. That's one thing. Then another thing I want to say is I was talking to somebody yesterday and they believe that Biden didn't volunteer to make a statement where he would no longer be president or run in the race, and that maybe why him being sick has been caused by somebody. So I just wanted to make those 2 statements.
Well, firstly, what you said is not weird, by the way. What you said, I've heard, it's plausible. I've heard this many times. There are a lot of people out there in the streets in America, maybe other countries too, who take drugs. And so they are very, very vulnerable to death because of the drug taking. And secondly, things that happen, I said at the very beginning of this Zoom, at the top levels in Washington, D.C., there are a lot of things that happen. We have no idea or no clue or no capability of doing anything about it. So I'm just saying the next few days, this week, will be very critical for Netanyahu and for the Israeli people. And then, of course, the American elections in November. And don't forget, you have a president-elect, who assumes office only in January. So it's a very sensitive time. We're going to have to see how it all plays out. And again, we don't know. Supposedly, Secretary of State Blinken said a few days ago that within 2 weeks, Iran has enough fissile material for bombs. So, like anything could happen in the next 2 weeks also. I was supposed to be in the States this summer. So I'm here. I've got to be here with Rachel and my community and my kids and my grandkids. And after all, it's surreal, you know, because we get up, we watch TV, Rachel cooks my meals for me, takes good care of me. But we're in war. Anything can happen at any time. And I'll never forget, on April 14th, my wife's birthday, I woke up at 1:15 in the morning. 1:15 in the morning, I heard like a boom. And I thought somebody was throwing a hand grenade or something. And then I heard a louder boom. And the third boom was so loud, it was like over my head here, and then the sirens went off. So that was the Iranian missile attack on Israel, in which they fired 320 missiles at us. So, you know, we are in war. We can be hit by missiles from anywhere at any time. And that's besides the crazy terrorists running around in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. So I don't know what effect my Zoom chats have with all of you, but I feel God is telling me I've got to do this so that you can get the information. I give you the information and then you decide. That's what they say in the media here. Any other questions, dear ones?
Avi, I was just wondering about, you know, as somebody referenced earlier, Netanyahu recently said, you're fighting a war on 7 fronts right now. Is that the highest number of simultaneous fronts since 1948, or initially when everyone attacked, you know, in 1948? Has it ever been more than 7?
Well, what we had in 1948-49 was an invasion from Egypt. They had some Sudanese volunteers. That's two fronts, you could say. We had the Lebanese army and an Iraqi army and a Jordanian army. So there were five that I know of, and Syria. So 6. It could be that we had 7 front war, but this is the first time that 7 countries are launching missiles at us. So this is worse than 1949, and the war's been going on for almost a year now. And we're one little country fighting everybody. And the US government is helping us, but they're not helping us because they're funding Iran and funding the proxies. So, like I said before, we have to really pray for a Republican president, Trump. We have to pray for the American government to cut out the nonsense because these progressives in the Democrat Party are completely crazy. And a lot of the Jews that go with them are crazy. I want you to know that because I don't travel and I'm here in Israel, you guys are basically my only justification for maintaining my sanity, because I'm going crazy here in Israel, not being able to talk to anyone and get the message out. But God is saying, I believe God is saying, stay where you are for now.
I have a question.
Sure.
What kind of protection do your athletes have going to the Olympics? What kind of protection do they have?
Well, the French police has given the Israeli athletes more protection than anyone else. I would imagine the French police can be good protection if they are directed to give good protection by the French government. We had a very sad time in 1972 in Munich during the Olympics there, that the German government just dropped the ball completely, and we lost 11 of our athletes. So, you know, we're hoping, our athletes are hoping and ready, because they're athletes. If anything happens, they're not going to give up and just, you know, allow themselves to be killed. They're going to fight with their bare hands if they have to. But I think the French police are going to do a good job this time.
I have one more question.
Sure.
I hear different ones on prophecy. that are saying this is the Psalm 89 war. I think it's 89 or 83.
83.
Yeah. Anyway, is this the culmination of that?
Well, Psalm 83 war is a war in which Israeli Arab neighbors attack, and so in that case, yes. The Armageddon war is coming from the north, which is Turkey and the Turkic nations and Iran, and so it could be countries that are not neighbors of Israel. So it's a good question. I'm very careful not to parallel Bible teachings to current events. The Bible gives us morality and understanding of God's plan, but they are not prophecy in the sense that, on such and such a day, at such and such a time, there'll be such and such a war. These wars happen in different ways, but what I do believe is the victory is from God.
Avi, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you think Bibi will meet with Trump? And what happened with that relationship that Trump's gone off Bibi?
Well, what happened was, the elections in 2020 were contested. And there was even the January 6th demonstrations outside the Capitol building. Netanyahu did not accept that this was a stolen election. I personally believe it was a stolen election. Netanyahu said it was a legitimate election, and he immediately called President Biden elect to wish him good success.
Oh, okay.
And so Trump was very offended by that. Listen, these are things that can be overcome. Nothing serious really happened, and I think Trump and Netanyahu understand things the same way.
And he will meet up with him.
I personally think he will, and I'm going to say something which might put me in a bad light, but we have a joint enemy. The joint enemy is the globalists. The globalists hate Trump. The globalists hate Netanyahu. And by the way, the globalists hate Putin also. Now, Putin is not an angel. Putin has started a war very unfairly with Ukraine. Ukraine is backed by the globalists. So I don't know how the war will end between Ukraine and Russia. I hope it ends soon. My family roots are in Ukraine and Russia. And I'm not happy to see people dying there or anywhere. But at this stage, I see a very strong. I produced a DVD about this in 2016 called The Trump Revolution. And that DVD shows that Trump and Netanyahu and Putin actually have a lot in common.
Thank you.
Aaron, are you still there?
Yes.
Is there anything you want to add?
We will win.
Amen. Sure, we will. And we invite all of you, when this crazy war is over, Lipkin Tours is ready for any groups that come, and we still have groups coming, so it'll be very happy for all of us. Any other questions before we sign off?
Avi, do you know, or can you shed any light? I read that Netanyahu had taken some of the rescued hostages with him to America. Are they going to address the public in any way and share their experiences, do you think? Or
I don't know the schedule.
Happen?
I don't know the
Right.
schedule, but I would not be surprised. Noah Argamani, the young lady who got home just in time from captivity, that the Israelis released her, saved her, rescued her, and she got home just in time to be with her mom before the mother died from cancer. So she went with Netanyahu to Washington, and her father also went. I would think it would be a good PR effort to get her up to speak also. So we shall see. There were a number of people who were hostages that were freed that'll probably want to speak up.
I'd really like to hear them speak, but I'm afraid that they will be thwarted, that they'll take that opportunity away from them, which will be really sad if that happens.
I don't know. If we're talking about the Republican convention or meeting with Republican leaders, they wouldn't try to force. The Democrats might. But,
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I see Pastor Glenn. How are you, sir?
Doing very well, sir.
Praise God. Any questions? I always respect I respect everybody's questions, but I love to hear from you.
I think the one thing that surprised me, though, after the attack on the consulate there in Tel Aviv, that has not yet appeared on national news here in the United States. It's almost as though they're trying to ignore that it even existed. I've seen a lot about it on Israeli, German, Indian newscasts around the world, and it is online, but no national news, NBC, ABC, CBS, to the best of my knowledge, has ever said anything about that or the response with the Houthis.
You didn't see the attack on the Houthis on TV?
I did see it, but not with the U.S. news. No, it's not being broadcast on the U.S. news channels.
Not on Fox either?
I haven't seen it. I've tried my best to watch. And I haven't met anybody around who has heard about it that uses, just listens to the American news channels. It's almost like it's been ordered, keep it off the press, and you've got to get it from foreign news sources, not in the U.S.
Thank you for updating me on that. Very important that we know that the U.S. media is not covering any of this.
I haven't seen a thing on it, and I've tried my best, and I've asked others, and nobody has heard of it.
If anyone on this Zoom knows about the news on Yemen from the American media, could you speak up?
I saw it on Amir Safati Telegram channel, but I don't know who was the broadcaster, where he got it from. And also there's a channel called Breaking News, Israeli War Room on Telegram. They have very good information too. But it showed footage of the fires and everything that happened. So I know Amir is connected to America very much. So you could go on there and try and see who was the broadcaster, the main, where he got that from.
I would say probably we have a channel which I consider like CNN, very left wing, but I-24, and they have news in different languages, but they have news in English. I'm sure I saw that they covered that.
Well, it's been covered, but many of the media online is covering and talking about it. But NBC, CNN, CBS, ABC, Fox News, I haven't heard a word from any of them about either the consulate near attack on the consulate or the response with the Houthis. And I have not met anybody who has heard about it. I've been asking around what contacts I have, and nobody's heard about it.
I heard about it. But I
And
can't
then you
remember.
heard of it because I
But-
announced it. I heard of
Yeah,
it from
yeah.
Amir. I also heard it from Amir Safari. And
Yeah.
I talked about it. Yeah.
So, Avi, I would venture to guess that most of the people on this call get our news, our real news, from different sources than the typical American media. We get it from
Correct.
Telegram, we get it from Telegram and online sources and things
Yeah.
like that.
It's on Telegram several times. I've seen that. But I'm talking about US News is
Right.
covering it.
Right. That's why we all use alternate sources.
And Avi Lipkin Zooms.
Yeah, and Avi Lipkin Zooms, exactly.
And
That's why we're here.
Aaron Lipkin Zooms. I'll tell you, it's not a nice thing to say, but I live for this. I don't know if you remember the movie General George Patton, and he's in the battlefield, and all these bloody poor GIs and German soldiers, they're all bloodied and dying, and Patton says, "I live for this." If you remember. Well, at least I live for this from within the comfort of my living room.
We need to get you on Telegram, Avi.
I am on Telegram. Not very active. I was hacked out of Instagram. I was hacked out of Facebook. I was hacked out of what else was it? Messenger. You know what? The more I'm hacked, the happier I am, because then I have less and less effort to invest in other sources. But Telegram is still working.
Have you ever been on the Mac Files with Christopher McDonald, Avi?
No,
He has
not
quite
yet.
a big
Who is he?
audience. Be good to get on there.
Well, if you guys get it set up, I always say yes. I'm living proof ham is kosher. I always ham it up in front of the camera.
Oh dear. Well, I'm not in contact with him, but I listen to him. Maybe someone there knows him.
By the way, in London, I've been a few times with, I think his name is Simon Barrett.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've been on his show a few times.
Yeah, Revelation TV, the Middle East report. Very good, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's very good.
I don't know if you want to hear a joke. I really shouldn't tell you, but there was this American tourist who went to Germany to buy the most expensive cuckoo clock. And, cuckoo clocks, they go tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. So he buys the absolutely most exquisite, beautiful tick-tock clock in Germany. And he goes back to his hotel room, unwraps the package and gets it to see how it works. And he sees it doesn't go tick-tock, it goes tick-tick. So the next day he goes to the German store owner and says, "I bought a tick-tock clock and you sold me a tick-tick clock." And the German says, "Give me the clock, I will fix it." So it goes into the back room there where he fixes clocks and stuff. And the American tourist is just waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally he gets up and he goes to the corridor to the back room where the German is supposedly fixing the clock. And he sees the clock on the table and there's this light beaming down on the clock. And the German is smoking a cigarette. And he's smoking a cigarette and blowing smoke into the clock and says, "We have our ways to make you talk." Tick-tock. Okay.
Oh, Avi.
I better keep my day job.
Very good.
Any other questions? Okay, I don't want to leave you guys. You guys are like my family. I want to, joke around and see you guys and everything. But in 25 minutes, 24 minutes, I have a TV show with God's Learning Channel, and you can also watch that. It's on Facebook, Brant Fricker, and it's also broadcast. I don't know if it's sometimes live, sometimes it's not, but it'll be on, I think, tonight in Odessa, Texas. But look up GLC, God's Learning Channel, Brant Fricker, Avi Lipkin, and you can see the show I'm going to do with him. It's a half hour. And also my website is www.biblicalalliance.com. So you can also see some of my stuff there.